Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Two Dudes, Two Mics. I am your host, Dalton Wicks, alongside my brother from the same mother,
Spencer. What's up, man?
What's happening? What's going on?
Nothing much. What is the topic for today?
I'll tell you what's happening. It's everybody's favorite topic to talk about, politics and voting.
Hell yeah. I
can
know
already
it's my favorite
hear
thing.
Everybody just turning off the podcast right now. Just like, nope, I don't want to hear this.
Well, apparently a good portion of people want to hear it, so.
Because that's how everybody's opinion normally is, though. Nobody wants to have open discourse about political stuff anymore. People just want to rant about what they've been grown up and told all the time, and nobody actually wants to have an open conversation and be open-minded about certain political conversations. They're just like, wow, I've grown up thinking this way, and that's how I'm going to think always.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that seems to be the mindset for a majority of people.
But before we go into the specifics about, the upcoming election, the two awesome candidates that we have lined up in front of us.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to just kind of dive into what is our voting system? What is it comprised of? And we're mainly going to stick to, in this episode, the presidential campaigns and the voting for president and vice president. And then we might come out with a part 2 that has local elections covered. And then we'll dive into like Senate, House, local congressmen. But we're just going to keep it to the presidency for now.
Sounds good, man.
So the electoral college, my least favorite term ever.
And why is that, Dalton? Why is that?
Spencer's probably so fucking sick of me just bitching about this every single day. It's one of the things I hate the most. The electoral college is this stupid shit that was invented to essentially take the direct vote away from the individual people and just associate you with everybody that lives around you.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at
that's
it.
my way of defining it. Like, the realistic version of it is the electoral college is it's this system that's divided up to where the way we are all divided up in the country in terms of this system is we are divided into districts in each state. So each state has district lines that they draw, and then if you're in District A, then you and everybody else in District A are represented by one elector for that district.
Yeah, and it would be whoever the people in District A vote for. The majority is what the elector would vote for District A. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and so your vote then just gets looped in to what everybody else in your area.
Even if you were in the minority voting for someone else, it doesn't matter. If the majority, that vote will get picked by the elector most of the time.
So where the countless problems can already arise here is, first of all, if you're in a huge state like California, right? Like, let's use California and Texas, right? They're two very large examples of one's a very blue state and one's a very red state, right?
Yeah.
So in California, if you're a Republican and you're living in a certain area and it's just you're surrounded and drowning in Democratic votes around you, your vote does not matter at all. Like, it just doesn't. You're not going to get any say. It's not going to matter in the grand scheme of things, so you might as well just go move to a state where it does matter. And then it's the exact opposite conundrum in Texas, where if you're a Democrat or a liberal-minded person, you're living in a area that's just surrounded by red votes, then that district is going to drown you out too.
Yeah.
And you had some examples too that you were going to bring on about how great the electoral college is about just capturing the overall population's vote.
Yeah, so there's been 5 times where this has happened. Obviously the most recent one that's burned into everyone's minds is the 2016 election. Clinton,
quite recent, you say?
She had the popular vote. She won. She had more votes than him and ends up losing the election because of this electoral system.
So you're telling me that the majority of Americans wanted one person to win the presidency, and then the electoral college said, fuck you.
Essentially, that's what I'm saying, yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I don't know how many of you would remember. I was too young to remember the last time this happened was in 2000. Actually, Al Gore had more popular votes than George Bush in the 2000 election. That was the whole infamous Florida recount thing, I think, is what that was a part of. But besides those two, the other three instances that has occurred have all happened in the 1800s. So there's two that have happened very recently, and the rest are very, very old. So yeah, it's
less people around back then, but the same kind of concept. It's just the overall majority. When we like to, I understand that people who are in the political know that we are a republic and not a complete democratic country, but we always hear so much of this country. Like the pros that everybody likes to float around is like, oh, we're a country based on freedom and everybody's got rights and everybody matters and shit like that. And then you look at the voting process, you're like, oh,
do we really all matter if this is the shit that's going on with our voting?
Yeah, it turns out not every vote actually is going to have any sort of say in the grand scheme of things. It's, in fact, like only a certain percentage of them
in this system, it's like, what, Florida, Iowa, whatever other swing states
you have
there
a
are.
very small handful of swing states where there's actually a pretty...
There's weight to your vote.
There's a balanced kind of mix of different sort of parties and people who are voting for different candidates. But in the majority of the other states, they all just swing one way. And if you are going to think, like the examples I used earlier, if you're, a Republican and you're living in a Democratic state, you're completely screwed. And then vice versa, if you're a Democrat in a Republican state, you're completely screwed. So you basically have to go to a swing state for you to actually have some sort of weight to what you're voting for.
So what I'm seeing is for the 2020 election, Colorado, Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin are the only states where your vote matters. Those are the swing states projected for the 2020 election is what I'm seeing. So that's go live there and vote if your vote really matters, man. I don't know what else to say about it.
Also, for some reason, and by the way, I forgot to mention earlier that they base the amount of electors off of it has to do with the amount of representatives they have, like in the Senate and the House. It's some kind of combination like that. That's what I was reading about earlier. That's not a huge deal, but just more clarification on how the process works. And for some reason, DC gets 3 electoral votes, even though it's not a state. It's within Maryland, yet we're just gonna give Maryland an extra 3 electoral votes. Just
what I did find about that was actually a relatively recent thing. The District of Columbia has had 3 electors since 1961.
Yeah,
in the 23rd Amendment. I just think that's kind of weird.
I have heard there's recent momentum trying to there are many people trying to get DC recognized as the 51st state.
Yeah, I've been seeing that too. I don't know how to feel about that. I mean,
I just don't...
Does it matter? Does it not matter? It matters in the Electoral College.
It would matter in that sense, but is it big enough? Is it robust enough to be its own entity like that?
I don't
Maryland's
know the
not even a
population,
huge place in and of itself.
I feel like the population, at least in DC, is pretty big.
It is,
in comparison to the rest of Maryland. I don't know. There's some other pretty tiny states out there. I mean, that would be a really, really tiny state, though, if it was just DC.
All right, so now we're going to transition into a subgenre of this whole thing and go on to actually I think this is actually my least favorite term. The Electoral College might come in at a close second, because with the Electoral College comes gerrymandering.
Ooh, okay.
And so for all of the people, we know some people out here, and I'm not going to name any names, who always talk to us about how important voting is in the election, right?
You know who you are.
I've heard several people tell me, voting, it's really important to make sure you go out and vote for whichever candidate you want. We'll talk more about the local election stuff because that all works a little bit differently, and it may be a part two. But if we're solely talking about the presidential election, here's why your vote doesn't matter.
Okay, lay it out, man.
Gerrymandering is a completely lawfully protected illegal practice that takes place all the time, where these legislators are able to redraw district lines to completely discriminate against certain races, certain groups of people, and certain political parties to get whatever outcome they please. And this is a massive problem in swing states. Huge.
It's completely illegal. I mean, it's redrawing lines to get your party to win, and it's as simple as that. And there's no, I can't wrap my head around why this has been protected for as long as it has.
So for those who aren't so familiar with how this whole thing works, so again, take a state like California, and it's divided up into district lines, and legislators, they'll meet together. We live in Alameda County right now, and then next door we have Contra Costa County. We have all these different county and district lines, right? And so legislators come together and they draw those lines, like you're deciding which areas belong in which county. But there's no laws to protect legislators from identifying that there's a certain ethnic group or there's a certain amount of people who are voting one way, and then they can go in and redraw the district line to make sure that those people get split up more and their votes become less weighted because they're split into two different districts where they used to be in one. If they're all in the same district, they hold more of a weight to their vote because they'll actually get that elector's vote. But if they get split up and then their vote becomes more meaningless because those people are spread out, now all of a sudden their voices have been suppressed.
You seem pretty heated.
I mean, I actually think I'm pretty calm right now. I'm just like I'm pretty into the description of this. You'll know what I'm getting really heated
I understand why you're pissed. I mean, everybody should be mad about this. I mean, it's been happening since the early 19th century. And do you want to hear the man's magnificent name that kind of started this whole bullshittery?
Lay it on me.
His name was Elbridge Gerry. My man.
Elbridge.
That's a sack of shit. All right. Is there anything else we can talk about gerrymandering?
Yeah, so the thing with gerrymandering and the issue that kind of then brings in is we've also, with the recent Black Lives Matter movement and social injustice movements coming up, we've had more eyes drawn to and more light shed upon the fact that there's a lot of discrimination in the voting process as well.
Yep.
Like we're seeing so many in the last election, and where you have fears in this coming election where there's going to be a lot of people in the Black communities and in the Latino communities and people who are just targeted by this systemic discrimination. They're going to have their voices not heard as well because of, these polling places opening and closing at certain times, and then there not being enough of them. And then the gerrymandering itself is going to redraw the district lines so that, certain people are split and with their votes. So it's a whole lot of bullshit going on and so much to wrap your head around, and it seems like they just overcomplicated this whole process of voting. It should be so simple.
I feel like that's a big part of this whole electoral college gerrymandering thing, is to complicate it to the point where people just, you're told to just go out and vote since the day you're fucking born. Oh, as soon as you can, go out, vote. But then people are so fucking confused by the whole process and all the intricacies of it that we just go vote, don't even want to bother thinking about all these district lines, all this gerrymandering, all this shit. Just go vote, and hopefully your candidate wins. And then people aren't as frustrated, I feel like, as they should be about all this shit.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And the main argument I always hear from people who get all high and mighty, they get on their pedestal and look down on people like me, because like I've I had one election already where I didn't vote. I voted in one of them, and then I didn't vote in the other. I think I've only been eligible to vote in two of them. And so I didn't vote in one, and then, you got your people saying, well, you don't get to bitch. You don't get to say anything because you didn't vote. And well, here's my response to that. And the reason why you're seeing a lot of people, starting with my millennial generation and on to your Gen Zs, and then the people who are now starting, these younger generations coming up to vote, a lot of people just don't see the fucking point because, and here's the reason why. All the reasons I just laid out for all the fucked up shit that can go on behind the scenes. And so how do we as Americans or just as people attack things that we don't support? So like, I don't support the Electoral College, right? So normally when you don't support a business because they do some shady shit or they're involved in some bad stuff that you're not a fan of, you stop supporting that business, right?
Yeah,
That's your way of protesting that. You don't involve yourself with it, and therefore you're, by not associating yourself with it, that's you protesting that. So with the Electoral College and with voting, that is how in the past I've used my voice, by not using it, because that's my form of protesting for this stupid system we have of voting.
That makes a lot of sense.
It doesn't make sense to continue to vote in something that you don't believe in and you don't believe is fair and just. I just
exactly.
don't see the reasoning behind that.
Yeah, shit, how old was I? I actually couldn't vote in the last election, but I don't plan on voting in 2020 for pretty much the same exact reason you just laid down, man.
It's so simple to me because everybody has that same mindset when it comes to any kind of companies, any kind of products that they're invested in, and then when it comes to the voting system and, when the ballots come out and everything, we're all supposed to just kind of put our differences aside and just kind of keep on contributing to this same broken system. It's like, no, we want change. We want this to be different. And the way we let the government know that is if they see a magnificent drop in participation or a sizable drop in people
which we did
paying
see
attention.
in
Exactly.
2016.
Exactly, yeah. Then maybe it's time to start revisiting the voting process.
But the thing is, I don't hear anybody, at least in positions where they can change things, these politicians, I don't see any politicians talking about changing the voting process itself, because I think it benefits them greatly to have such a fucked voting system.
Right, and then from there we can then jump into the stupid arguments that people have for the Electoral College itself, right? So the whole reason this was put into place, and I can understand where they're coming from, but I also disagree with it. So there's the basic reasoning I see in terms of pro-Electoral College people. It's the people who live out in Wisconsin, the people who live in Rhode Island, the people who live in Montana, the people who live in these very low-populated places, and they want their state, their area, to have more of a say than the densely populated places like New York and California. It's like all I'm seeing, especially now when I'm seeing these discussions online and stuff, it's people are just like, oh, you want California and New York to have all the power.
They want the little guy's voice to have a voice.
And we do have voices for those people in the Senate. That's why the Senate was created. Each state gets 2 senators, regardless of population size. And that's where those checks and balances come into play greatly. And then the House is based on population.
Yeah.
But in the voting spectrum, when we're voting for a president, I'm sorry, California and the Bay Area specifically, and Los Angeles and these densely populated places, fuck yeah, I want more of a vote than Montana and Nebraska and all of those other places. There are more of us here than there are in your place. I'm sorry, there just are. So if you want to have your voice heard, go move and make another densely populated area of people that are like-minded like you. But I'm sorry, you're not going to diminish my people's votes because you feel differently and you live in a slightly different part of the country.
Because you chose to live in Montana. I mean,
yeah, that's your fault for living out there, dude. If you feel like your voice isn't getting heard properly, go move to a place where it will. I'm sorry, that's it.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many differently minded people, so many non-densely populate. I mean, I could have worded that better. So many densely populated areas like us in New York, and so many places in Middle America that are not. And I can see why they feel discriminated against, if that's the right word to use. But I guess if I was in Montana, not that I ever would be, if I wasn't fortunate enough to be born there, then I'd be a little mad that California kind of, I guess has more power in that sense. But I don't feel bad for them for not having more people. I don't know. It's such a complicated, this whole system is so complicated. It's making my head fucking spin around in circles thinking about it.
Exactly. So what I really want to see happen is I want to see them change and overhaul this voting system to where people are able to get equal voices across the entire country. See, I'm not focused on each specific state in each area getting the same voice. I think that's a problematic mindset to have. You want each individual to have the same kind of say. And by changing it to a mass majority vote, just a simple majority, like, whoever just gets the most total votes, that means each individual's vote then matters more according to that policy. Because, if you were to come to, like, I don't know, 150 to 150 million, and then that last person puts the vote over, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
so
it should be that
vote
simple.
just carries more that way.
Yeah, was it ancient Rome that had the direct democracy? Am I saying that one right? Or each, I know the population. I mean, I know the population was super small, but each person that was eligible to vote cast their vote, and then that, just like you were saying, like 50 to 50, and then that last person votes, and then they win the election. Like, it should be that simple, so everybody's vote equally matters.
Right. And I think another problem with just the electoral college and a lot of our other laws and shit that are just still around in general, everything is just so outdated.
Yeah.
When everything was put into place, the population was drastically different, lifestyles were drastically different, and it was just a completely different time period that we were in.
Yeah,
the times are changing, and we need to change with them.
It's weird that we base our entire country off a 300-year-old piece of paper. I mean, it just seems odd that we haven't updated that. I mean, we've had to update it quite a few fucking times with however many amendments we have to
yeah,
it.
Yeah. You mean we're still running a lot of our country based on laws that were made around the time that a bunch of old racist white guys deemed black people 3/5 of a person? That same set of laws?
Yeah. So, yeah, it's a little fucking ridiculous. There was one other thing I wanted to mention about this electoral college thing was I think it's at least 20 states that require the elector to cast their vote for the majority of whoever it was in their state. But there's quite a few states where the elector can be what is known as a faithless elector and vote for just whoever the fuck they want, basically.
What? Yeah, how about that fuckery?
That's happened before. It's happened numerous times.
Yeah.
It happened in 2016. It happened. It happened all throughout the 20th century. It's like, is that not mind fucking to you? That like the elector can just be like, oh, your state voted for Clinton. Fuck you. I'll just throw it in for Trump.
Imagine being in that situation though, and it's like everybody in an area, and they have their one elector, and everybody gives the majority for candidate A, and then he's just like, oh, fuck you guys. Candidate B is going to get the vote. And you're just like, what?
And I will say that it has never changed, like having a faithless elector in an election has never changed the president outcome, but it has changed the vice president outcome a few times. And that was back in the early mid 1900s. But it can happen is my point, and it's really fucking stupid.
Yeah, there's just so much crap that is involved with this whole process, and I really feel like we're long overdue for an overhaul. Get rid of this whole system. Let's make a new one. Let's just go back to a simple majority for now, and then maybe there's some different way down the line that we figure out that's whatever. But I just don't think it's overdone. Just simplify it. Get rid of the electors. Get rid of all that shit. Just tally total votes. That's it.
We hold on to old shit too much in this country. All these old traditions.
People hate change.
Especially here. It's really hard to change shit here, and I feel like that's why this is stuck around for so fucking long.
It's really hard for people to admit that old traditional stuff is just outdated and wrong.
Yeah.
They don't want to accept it. It's like, oh, well, that wouldn't be American of me to acknowledge that we just have some fucked up rules and regulations and shit. And it's like, there's no shame. There's nothing wrong with acknowledging that, you know, there's a certain law or there's a certain regulation or there's something in the Constitution. There's something that just needs to change according to the current times we're living in, because history just changes. You know, we move forward, we evolve as people, we become more progressive and stuff, and things are nowhere near the same right now than they were 200 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Or even 50 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, look at how much has changed in the last 50 years. And, you know, it's that whole, like, Second Amendment kind of argument, too, is like, you know, that whole thing was made for muskets and shit. Whatever the fuck they were shooting back then, you know. That's how much things have changed since then, and that we're basing our legislator off of a fucking 300-year-old piece of paper. Fucking ridiculous.
I'm actually gonna digress before we head into Orange Man and Mr. Forgetful. We're gonna actually talk briefly about the third parties.
The what now?
Exactly. So I'm talking to you libertarians, you Green Party people, whatever it is you identify with. I'm going to tell you why you're a complete fool if you ever dare to vote for third party in this country, the way that our current bicameral legislature is set up and the two-party system. So the way that these things work, the way that elections work, is these candidates need to have X amount of funding. They need to have a certain following behind them. There's a lot of benchmarks they need to clear in order to be taken seriously and actually put on ballots as serious candidates, right?
Yeah.
And so the problem that comes with a lot of these self-righteous people that just say, oh, fuck these two candidates in the Republican and Democrat parties, so I'm just going to vote third party. What happened in this last election that I think personally screwed Clinton out of actually securing the nomination.
Those third-party votes that
the third-party votes,
Democrat.
the Bernie bros that got hella mad because their guy didn't get elected as the front runner, and you know, even Republicans who went off and voted third party. You have to realize that your vote isn't going to matter at all that way. You are actually just literally wiping your ass with your ballot by voting for third party, because there will never ever, listen to me, there will never ever be a third party candidate that wins in this current climate. If you want to make a statement and go ahead and say, hey, I want there to be different people involved, I want to introduce new parties, you need to go out and do that footwork outside of the election season and not do it during the election. So go out and go make petitions, go protest, go do all that shit outside of the election. But when it comes to the election's going to go on as is, and your little statement that you're trying to make with voting for, you know, Ralph Nader or whoever the fuck is the third party guy, that person's not going to win. No one's going to really get affected by that vote you made.
You telling me
you just look like an idiot?
You telling me fucking Howie Hawkins from the Green Party doesn't have a chance? He doesn't have a chance, Dalton? Or fucking Joe Jorgensen from the Libertarian Party?
That is the most quote-unquote hot candidate I'm seeing from all of the like internet trolls right now is Joe Jorgensen or whatever, and I'm just like, I guarantee you on his final ballot he's gonna have like 1% of the total vote, maybe. No, him and Hallie will both make up one together. Or are you telling me Kanye isn't gonna get a good chunk of votes? Dude, I swear, he's trying to get he's actually trying to get labeled as independent party on the Wisconsin vote right now.
Man.
It's maddening.
I know where I'm moving. voting.
But yeah, what I would recommend to you, honestly, if you are still confused and you disagree with me about the third party stuff and like, oh, well, you know, I'll show you. Do yourself a favor. Do a little bit of research. Take a fucking poli-sci class. Go teach yourself a little bit about American government some more. And because I can't describe the whole thing to you in one sitting, but essentially you will discover how absolutely moronic you would be to vote for third party in the American voting system. So just don't. I would just assume you don't vote.
It's honestly more. Don't even waste your time.
It's the same thing.
Go do something else productive that day.
Like when if someone who voted third party tried to tell me when I didn't vote in the election that their vote mattered more, I would have to fight the urge to laugh hysterically in their face. It is the same thing. You are voting for nobody.
Yeah, just stay home, paint a picture, watch some TV, do something more productive than
do some finger
for Howie.
painting. You know, go play Animal Crossing. Do something a little more productive than vote for third party. Okay.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That's all I'm going to say on that matter.
Okay.
Anyway, while we're on third parties, Donald Trump.
Okay.
Who is not a Republican, and I will stand by that till the day I die. How's Donnie Boy been doing in his first term as president?
I hear he's doing fantastic, and I only watch Fox News. So
if you ask him, he's doing tremendous. If you ask Ben Shapiro, he's doing tremendous.
If you ask Fox and Friends, which is where I exclusively get all my news, he's doing great.
With the way that Trump's campaign has gone on, here's a little cute number for all of you Trumpies out there. So I don't know if you're aware of the GDP. Do you know what the GDP is, Spencer?
It's been a while since I've taken government. It's something to do with money and shit, right?
Something to do with money and shit. It stands for the gross domestic product.
Yeah, I remember now.
So that is essentially a reflection of America's monies.
Okay.
That's how I'm going to break it down for people out there. America's monies, that's how much we have.
Okay. How much monies do we have, Dalton?
Not good in the last quarter. So a trend that was consistently hovering around it was staying around the 0 to, and this is all in terms of percentage, right?
Yeah,
in terms of like quarter to quarter, is it growing? Is it going down? It was all staying around 0, maybe a little bit above, that's the norm that America's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
In quarter 2, the numbers with the virus pandemic coming out and everything, and I don't want to hear your bullshit about how the virus is solely responsible for this fall.
I don't think it was looking great before.
There was a 33% drop in the gross domestic product for the United States. 33.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
That is a shitload of money that we lost as a country. Wow.
I'm not a fucking expert because I didn't even know what it stood for, but I feel like it had been, as little as I paid attention, it had been steady at at 0, a little bit above for a long time, and that's yikes.
You don't need to be an economics master to
even
know that
back,
no monies mean no good.
Even back in the housing crisis back in like 08, 09, that wouldn't have affected GDP too much, but the economy bounced back pretty quickly. I don't.
Who would have thunk that if you just told everybody to stay home, which I get, Trump himself didn't tell everybody to stay home, but it's not his decision to tell everybody to stay home. It's a state-by-state issue with businesses. And so the states were telling people to stay home, and then Trump is just like, here's $1,200. And then, by the way, I'm going to go bail out all of my rich, corporate, greedy billionaires and give them these massive loans for any kind of money that they lost. God forbid that any fucking $2 billion man loses a 1/4 of like maybe $1 million or something. Oh, fuck. Oh, can we just talk about the mail-in balloting shit too with Trump?
Yeah.
What is that about?
What is it? I don't know.
What's
his problem with it?
I really don't get it. I don't understand because mail-in balloting, it's just like it's the way that people are going to need to vote during these times in particular, and with people who don't have a lot of voting poll places around them anyway.
Yeah, it's what we should have been. It's what we should have been doing this whole time. It's a waste of fucking gas to drive down to whatever polling station to vote, man. So let me mail that shit in.
I mean, realistically speaking, and I know that there's cyber risks and all this other shit, but like it's mind-boggling to me that we haven't reached a state where, as a country, we're just doing digital voting.
Yeah.
Like, we have infinite amounts of surveys and polls and all of this other shit.
Which are all usually wrong.
At our grasps on the internet, yet we can't figure out how to just have people vote for president and shit at home so they don't have to go any places. That way they don't have to take the entire day off of work and wait in a line for 8 fucking hours or some shit to just go poke a hole in a paper.
It's too convenient. You gotta make everyone go wait in that line, man. If you want to change the country with your vote that matters so much, you gotta go wait in that line, dude.
I swear, man. Pretty easy fix here. If you wanna get rid of the mail-in ballot stuff, fine. Then make the voting day itself a national holiday. No businesses should be operating that day. Not a single one. You should increase the amount of polling places.
Yeah, dude, if it's such an American thing to do, why isn't it a national holiday? If all these politicians are trying to get us to vote, if it's such an American thing to do, why isn't it a national
that's
holiday?
How ass backwards the country is. They're more close to making the Super Bowl a national holiday than the actual day where we decide who is going to lead the country for the next 4 years.
You know, I think instead of this mail-in voting thing, whoever you're going to vote for, you should stamp it on your forehead and walk around, and then you'll have people counting it out. That's no one can meddle with the election. That'll probably work out better. So it's not looking good for Trump, according to NPR, man. It's Biden 297, Trump 170 as of today.
That's the prediction.
Predictions. Yeah, and of course it's going to get closer as we get closer to November. But
and I know all the people are going to come out and be like, well, Hillary was leading all the polls and stuff leading up to the last election, and point taken, but, we can only offer what we can see right now, and so those are what we have right now. Yes, they were wrong last time, but doesn't mean they're going to be wrong every single time. So.
Yeah, something that was kind of interesting was Florida was actually leaning Democrat, according to this NPR map that I'm looking at, and Texas is actually getting closer to more even instead of being super red for this election, so it was interesting.
We'll see. We talked about one 70-year-old crazy man. Now let's jump to the other 70-year-old crazy man.
Okay. Yeah.
Because, by the way, I'm just going to knock that stereotype out right off the bat. So the most popular slander of Biden right now is, Sleepy Joe, Forgetful Joe, Dementia Joe, and he's an old man and all this shit, and people conveniently forget that Trump is the same age.
I think it's just because Trump has so much energy, and he's like on PCP or something.
Trump is a very large, fat man who is in his 70s who could easily die of a heart attack any day.
It's just their personalities are so different. Trump's just more
loud.
energetic. Yeah. That's why people aren't labeling him like that. He doesn't seem to be forgetting as much shit as Joe Biden, but yeah, I don't pay attention enough to make that.
Trump has the same energy as all of the fascist dictators we've ever seen. He's just loud, he's in your face, and he's unapologetic about everything. And there's a very large amount of people who love that shit. In a leader, they see that.
Obviously.
Obviously. And they see this kind of guy who just comes out there and just kind of says, like, and he's spewing a bunch of shit that has absolutely no sourcing behind it, no reasoning, no nothing. And he's just spewing literal shit. And then people are just like, yeah, great. All right, love it.
People eat that shit up, man.
I mean, we learn about this, I'm a communications major, right? And so we learn so much in school about, speaking with conviction. There's a science to it to actually, and the one thing I'm going to give Donald credit for, I never thought I'd say this, is he knows how to manipulate a crowd.
I think that's how he won. With
It is
all
how
of
he
his
won.
rallying and everything. The way
He knows how to pander to these people.
Yeah,
He knows how to dupe them into just thinking that he's going to get all this shit done. And by the way, has anybody checked up on literally anything that he's promised that he's going to get done in the 4 years? Or are we just all going to say that Obama fucked everything up too bad and that Trump needs another 4 years to get it done? I mean, has anybody checked in on any of the stuff that Donnie promised?
I think it's a constant Bush fucked everything up too much for Obama to fix it. Then Obama fucked everything up too much for Trump to fix it. I think it's just like a constant, just kind of like passing down the blame to the next guy or the last guy. So, his followers definitely conveniently leave that part out where he doesn't fix anything.
Because here's the facts about what happened this year, right? So I just told you about the GDP thing. So our economy is in the shitter right now. That's thanks to Donald Trump, because I get it. Again, the states were the ones who told people to stay at home, but your job as the fucking leader of the country is to make sure that people, when they're staying home, can stay afloat during this unprecedented pandemic that we're in, which he didn't fucking take seriously from the get-go. And this is all falling back on him alone, because he was elected to be the leader and lead us through these times, and he failed. He's a failure. That's why our economy's in the shitter right now.
He's only concerned about getting reelected. That's the only thing he has on his mind right now.
And he's just backtracking all the way up because he didn't wear a mask for several months, refused to believe that any of this shit was real, and then boom, all of a sudden, what's his face? Herman Cain, who was at that rally that Trump held with all those people around, no masks on. Yeah, guess what? Kane's dead because he was one of those no mask guys. Oh, virus is a hoax, no big deal, blah, blah, blah. And guess what? He's dead.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. So,
and then you see Trump doing the ops with the mask on, and now he's telling people to wear a mask.
He's like, oh shit, an old guy died from this shit. Maybe I should wear a mask.
Now that he's seeing that over 150 fucking thousand people have died, maybe it's time to backtrack a little bit and save face before this election's coming up.
Yeah, he dug himself into such a big hole. I mean, obviously, no poll is super accurate, but he's got to be seeing these polls where he's not looking too good, and he's really trying to dig himself out of this hole, and he's not doing a good job leading us through this virus, and I think that's going to be a big part of why he loses.
He's spending time right now taking cognitive tests and going golfing. Those are his fun activities that he's doing right now. That cognitive test shit where he was taking like kindergarten comprehension stuff, that was hilarious to me.
I didn't see anything about that.
And by the way, I don't have it in front of me right now, but for anybody listening, if you have not seen the HBO interview that I believe an Australian reporter or anchorman or somebody gave to Trump, it's like a half-hour long interview. It's now posted on YouTube. If you type in Trump interview, it's probably going to be one of the first hits. It is fucking hilarious to watch, because this is one of the first reporters I've seen who instantly calls him out on his bullshit every single time he says something. Like, Trump is sitting there getting interrogated about the whole virus case stuff, and he's trying to hold up these like bullshit fake PowerPoint things that his stupid secretary and assistant made, and he's like, yeah, see, the U.S. is number one and the lowest coronavirus, and the guy just keeps firing back, and he's just like, no, you have to take this by the population, and by it's per capita and all this other shit, and he was trying to tell Trump that the U.S. is one of the top 3 worst places, and Trump's just like, there was actually a point where Trump was like, you can't do that, and then he and then he says, why can't I do that? like, this is my interview, bitch.
Dude, there's I don't know which countries they are, but there's only a handful of countries on the planet that are letting Americans travel to them. And it's like, how the fuck do we like
Isn't that
it?
ironic,
It's
dude?
like Mexico and like 3 other countries.
After we had the Muslim ban, the Muslim travel ban, and then building the wall with Mexico, and Trump's so concerned with like undocumented immigrants come over here. And now we cannot go anywhere else because of how shitty our situation is with the virus. Like, that is just...
That should just tell you right there, man. Like, you think this shit
kiss.
is serious, you can't fucking go anywhere because nobody fucking wants us.
Exactly. And I actually saw it with the Toronto Blue Jays. their whole situation when they were trying to figure out where to play, Canada told them that they can't play their home games in Canada because they didn't want the Blue Jays to be traveling to America and playing and then coming back.
Yeah.
They didn't want the inter-country travel.
Yeah. What state was it? Didn't the governor offer the Toronto Blue Jays to play in their state?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure
So
that
it was on the East Coast somewhere.
Yeah, they're now playing somewhere on the East Coast. I forget where. I think it's like Buffalo or something.
Not that it matters. I mean, they're still traveling all over the country, not in a bubble, which we already talked about. So.
Anyway, let's get back over to Biden for a minute, okay? So yes,
everyone's favorite
Forgetful
grandpa.
Joe. I understand he's had some lapses of speech, and he's not the most eloquent guy at all times when he's on stage. A lot of people out here, by the way, who are going to be very critical of him and just claim like, oh, well, he sucks at this. He sucks. Yeah, let's see you go on a fucking stage and go do public speaking, because a lot of people suck at public speaking. I can tell you that from very personal experience.
Yeah, it's not easy, man. I was thinking about it, he kind of looks like the grandpa. He kind of looks like he could be related to Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka. But anyway, yeah, yeah. I mean, especially he's however fucking old. He's the speaking part isn't great, but I mean, Trump's he's got that on him. I think he's a better speaker, but what he's speaking about is, the questionable part.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing. You're right. Trump is better at the art of public speaking.
Yeah, the art.
Because he's able to sell you on what he's talking about more, even if there's absolutely no substance, which 100% of the time there's no substance to it.
Yeah.
Like, anytime you try to fact check anything Trump says, it's just going to give you an aneurysm. Like, you can't actually wrap your head around anything that man says. But with Biden, I understand he's not the best at consistently making his points,
but he
actually has some semblance to what he's saying.
He doesn't give off an inherently diabolical vibe when he's talking. He's not like, you can't see straight through any bullshit, because there usually isn't any bullshit coming out of him.
And not to mention, this guy has political experience. He's been in the fucking White House before.
Yeah, there
with
was
Obama.
that one guy, that one president who got elected and was never in office before. I can't remember who he was. That one guy. The president right now.
Chester the cheetah.
Yeah, it helps that Biden was fucking in the White House already.
Oh, Ronald Reagan, actually? Does that guy count, too?
He was an actor, right? Yeah.
Same shit. Reaganomics. All right, so before we hit the VP stuff, I just want to go over some of Biden's plans and stuff that he's going to bring in that's going to hopefully counter what Trump's done so far. And in case you haven't picked up on the fact, like, yes, we're going to be favoring Biden in this election instead of Trump. So if you don't like us sharing that opinion, I don't give a fuck. All right, so anyway, Biden, according to his team's plan and stuff that he's put out so far, some of the stuff that's stuck out to me that's going to be important if he's able to follow through with it in being president. And I know that he does have a kind of slight edge into getting some of this stuff done just because he has the contacts already in the White House and he has that presence already. First of all, he's interested in funding small businesses across America. He wants to create a large fund of around like $60 billion to funnel back into like your local mom and pop shops, which I think is going to be very, very important that we tackle.
That'll probably get him a lot of Republican votes.
I do think so as well, because with that domino falling, you have to consider the significance of that whole thing, because not only are you protecting those businesses from just completely evaporating during the coronavirus times, but you're protecting so many jobs.
Yeah.
And Americans need those now more than ever, and they need that financial support. So I think that's a very critical thing. Not to mention just the fact that your Amazons and
these big corporations are just fucking hell for these small businesses. And I think that will buy him a lot of red votes, just solely off of the because I feel like a lot of red votes go to these plans to help the businesses out, and I feel like Democrats have been kind of slacking on their plans on the business end, and I feel like this is going to be critical for getting him critical red votes in this election.
Right. And then with the schools now. Schools is another big topic that we're now going to be seeing much more of in the news because guess what? School season is set to begin again here in a month. And because it's normally late August, early September that we see all schools go back into session. So who knows what's going to be happening there with Biden now. Biden wants to control the virus before people are allowed back in schools, according to what I've been reading about him. So yes, that's pretty damn important, making sure that these little, what would you even describe it as? Because obviously the kids, well, they are susceptible to it, obviously, because we have seen reported cases where there have been kids who have died from their coronavirus. Yep. There are people who are at risk in that younger age group, and they could die from it.
I have seen I don't know what day it was earlier this week where I think it was in Georgia, school actually started back up. Kids, no masks, crowded hallways and shit. I mean, it's already happening, but it obviously hasn't happened in California. We're not seeing any of that yet. But
and so, again, here's the biggest issue with that. Okay, you're sending all these kids to school. First of all, and I actually saw I forget who was talking about this the other day, but someone acknowledged the fact that, there's going to be some, small percentage of kids who actually get affected by it. So, they were acknowledging the fact that, it's a price to pay to just have kids get this disease and maybe die.
Yeah, how many kids dying before you're like, oh, it's not good. It's one kid dying is too many kids dying from corona.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Yeah, exactly. There is no price to pay to have everybody else just go back to, status quo, right? And again, above the kids getting it, then a lot of them are going to be asymptomatic carriers, and these kids aren't fucking getting tested every day, so then they're going to go home. Guess what? Go see mom and dad, go see grandma, go see all of the older people who are definitely severely more at risk, and then transmit the virus that way. And we are going to see cases skyrocket because of this.
Dude, we can't send fucking people back to school. I know at least around us, we're starting with the distance online stuff, which is fine. But
man, we've seen 150,000 plus deaths to this point, and then you want to mix school with cold and flu season coming up. You are asking for just many, many, many people to be getting this virus across the country and dying from it. And we've already seen that only 10% of people are able to form antibodies against this thing right now. So the whole herd immunity thing is bullshit. You don't know what you're talking about if you're trying to promote that. Seriously, do some research, go look it up. The antibodies thing is not realistic for most people. It's just not.
I didn't know that myself until you just brought it up.
Not to mention the fact that you're only making antibodies for that strain. If this thing mutates into a new strain, then you're fucked again. So anyway, so Biden wants to control the virus before schools reopen. I like that. Then staying in the academics realm, he's fully aware of the fact that the virus, even before the virus took place, but now especially with the virus in place, there's a lot of people who are in low-income areas and people who are greatly affected financially and just really impacted by poverty throughout this whole thing with getting to school, getting school supplies, getting an education in general. And he's definitely a proponent of getting a program together that's going to be funding money for these low-income areas. So these kids who are growing up in not advantageous positions, we'll just say, are able to get a little extra help and a little extra education to help get them through these times, because we could be seeing a lot of people just not getting the the same kind of education and teaching that people would normally get. And this could be like the next year, couple years, we don't know. So it's important to set this kind of program up so these kids don't miss out on valuable experience.
Yeah, dude, it's that's going to be crucial. I am very anxious to see how this is going to play out with this election coming up. Especially as, like, I'm not a teacher, but, in a classroom, and my work is heavily affected by it. And these kids aren't, it's so crucial for, the K through 12 stuff, and to not be physically in a classroom. It could set these kids up for failure to not be in these classrooms long term.
Pay teachers a fucking livable wage. Just had to throw that out there too. I'm a big proponent of that. Teachers are criminally undervalued and underpaid, and especially during these difficult times we're about to be going through. Pay these people.
Yeah, pay some special education paraprofessionals too while I'm at it.
Anybody who's in that kind of realm, they need to be compensated for what they're doing. They are literally shaping our youth into what they're going to be when they get older. They need to be compensated for that. I am 100% behind all of the awesome teachers I've ever had growing up, and all the teachers out there that make such a significant impact on all of the children across the nation, man. Like, I had some teacher experiences growing up. I became pretty close to a few of them. Like, I remember, Mr. Edwards back at Castro Valley High School.
Yeah.
He was one example in particular. Just you meet some really awesome people who just go above and beyond.
They can change. They can change your life.
They can they go above. They see, like, here's the curriculum I need to teach, but, like, let me help these people out with life stuff too, right? Like, it's, I'm around these kids more often. Some of these kids more often than their own parents. So why not just take a little bit of extra time to talk to them about some certain problems they got going on and just kind of help them get through the day. So, big shout out to all the awesome teachers out there. Pay them.
Yeah, seriously. So are there any other outstanding
the last
Biden
thing for Biden that I'll just touch on before we kind of jump into the VP stuff is, and again, I have to do some more research into this whole thing just because we've seen Obamacare and we know Trump's done everything he can to completely strip that entire thing away. And I know Obamacare wasn't the most perfect plan to begin with, but Biden has claimed and run his platform on he wants health care for all. He's running his platform to where he wants every American to be entitled to some sort of health care, which I am 100% behind. I don't think any American, regardless of your pay, regardless of your status, everybody should have access to affordable health care, in my opinion. I think that should be a right as an American citizen.
Should be right.
It should be written into the fucking Constitution, dude. If you want to just talk about making constitutional amendments and making changes, that's one right there. I think everybody should have access to affordable health care, for sure.
And I could not have said that better myself. So we're ready to get into this shit show of VPs.
Yeah, so Kamala Harris is going to be Biden's VP.
As of today, he's supposed to announce it in a few days. So as of right now, we don't know yet, but it's looking a lot like Kamala Harris, the senator from California. But there are two other chicks that are apparently in the running. Former National Security Advisor Susan Rice and Representative Karen Bass, who is a Democrat from California. I don't even know who the latter two people are, to be honest.
So Warren's not even in the conversation, huh?
From this article I'm reading from The Hill, those are the only three plausible candidates that could get the job. But it's looking like it's going to be Kamala, because didn't Biden himself say he wanted a woman of color, or something like that?
Yeah, and see, here's the other reason why I'm just not buying anybody else is going to be the candidate. Kamala just fits the bill to a T because he's getting you your representation, like you said, a woman of color, just like a different kind of candidate than the typical old white guy that we're seeing constantly in the White House and in politics in general. So she hits that mold. You know, she's she's the current senator for California. She's got political experience. She has that presidential platform as someone who ran this year. She actually had a decent shot for a while at becoming the actual nominee.
Yeah.
It wasn't that ridiculous to think that she would have beat Biden. So I just think that she's, based on her platform, her experience, her exposure, she's the safest candidate to go with. I understand a lot of people don't agree with her on certain issues, and she's kind of flip-flopped on a couple things, but dude, all politicians do that to some degree.
Yeah.
She's no worse than any other of them. So I think that she's going to be the one that he needs to go with, to just have she's the most safe pick, just the best choice out of everybody. I think if you go with someone a little more under the radar, someone not so well known, you're taking a risk there, because people, like I said, people like comfort and don't like change, and they don't want to see new faces. Someone they've never seen before.
We're familiar with Kamala, so
we know Kamala, so we're going to be a little more comfortable with voting for Kamala.
So now that I reread this article again, there is a little bullet point about a possible Native American vice president nominee named Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. So it's a tiny little bullet that I missed, but yeah, they're saying it's a small chance that he still could pick Elizabeth Warren. That's basically what it's saying.
I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
I know she's still in the running technically. I hope he doesn't pick her. I mean, I wouldn't be mad at it. I don't mind Elizabeth Warren really, but I think that Kamala's going to be the choice ultimately.
Yeah,
I think he would be smart to go that direction.
Well,
I think that's going to about do it, though. I think we covered basically everything that we want to go with. And then, like I said, we'll probably do a part 2 to this where we talk more about local and state elections, which, by the way, guess how they determine most of that? Spoiler alert, it's by simple majority.
no way.
What a concept. But until then, it's been real. It's been fun hanging out, talking, and we'll catch you next time. I have been Dalton.
I am apparently Spencer still.
You guys stay classy.
Peace out.